the inevitable truth is that your life won't last forever. You think about the people you love deeply, and thinking about it might actually hurt. Have you ever wondered if you missed opportunities to show more love, give more love, or demonstrate more love? There are times in our life when we are reminded that there is nothing more important than love. Because the greatest single need and desire of humanity is love. To love is the greatest power, privilege, and freedom we possess. And every thought, word, and action motivated by love matters. Love is the highest expression of what it means to be human. What I'd like to offer you is the idea to not leave love left undone. There may be things you don't accomplish, attain, or achieve in this world, but don't let shrinking back from love be one of them. If you're fortunate, you discover that love is the only thing that really matters. Love heals everything, and love is all there is. That's why I've started a love wave, an intention to demonstrate the undeniable possibilities when we look at life through the lens of love. After all, as you look back at your life, I'm sure you'll agree that life was always about that. It was all about love. This show is intended to highlight those that are committed, like I am, to bring their experiences, insights, and wisdom to advance what we believe to be true. That love is still the answer. Welcome to Love Wave Live. Hello and welcome everyone. It's that time every Saturday right here on Spirituality Gone Wild and Love Wave Live. And for those of you who are watching on any other networks, I welcome you. I'm Joe Italic, your host, and I'm just so thrilled today because I brought to the Love Wave virtual stage an amazing man that I've just recently met, and he's a younger version of my vision. I've learned already a ton from him, and you guys are just going to absolutely love Abram, and I'll introduce him in just a moment. For those of you, as you're coming on and viewing from wherever you are, just say hello in the chat and tell us where you're from. Ask any questions or any comments, and we'll make this interactive, and appreciate you showing up for the Love Wave Live stage. So last year, for those of you who don't know, I had an event in Phoenix, Arizona, and it was called Love Wave Live, and it was my intention to bring together different healers, transformational speakers, divine nobodies, as I call them, to share their own path and their own experience and how love has transformed their lives. And what was beautiful about it is that everyone had their own lane, and they brought their own flavor to love. And that's what I'm going to continue to foster as I align with what Abram will be sharing, and that is that idea of unity in diversity. And so if you know of, I'm looking for others who align with that and would love to entertain actually being on the virtual stage on Saturdays that I have this show. But today I really want to dive into the vision of this man because it really resonates with my heart and what I also want to align with and create with Love Wave. And so I want to introduce to you Abram Siegel-Rivers. Now, Abram grew up in a multicultural home in the San Francisco Bay Area. And in high school, he discovered a passion for music as a creative outlet for his own self-expression. And then in college, he eventually started a band called the Voodoo Fix and toured with them across the US and Europe for over 13 years. His varied experiences as a touring musician, it opened up Abram to a path of self-discovery. Then after years of touring and recording, he journeyed in through an existential journey, asking himself, who am I? Why am I? And why bother? And it was at the end of 2019 when he discovered his calling and the one-day vision and nonprofit was born. One Day is based in Nashville, Tennessee, and after launching it in early 2020, it's opened up offices already in Saskatchewan, Canada, and Chennai, India. Now, Abram is committed to empowering individuals and building communities through music, through art, culture, and events. And his commitment to peace and transformation has resulted in the hashtag One Day is Today movement and the One Day Global Holiday. He has hosted over 50 virtual stages and has interviewed more than 100 guests, including top authors, musicians, Olympic athletes, actors, inspirational entrepreneurs, and many more. And so I don't want to waste any more time, and I want to have you all welcome Mr. Abram Siegel-Rivers. There he is. Abram, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Joe, for the wonderful introduction. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This was a no-brainer when I first met you, and then I learned of your movement, your passion, your vision, your mission. It was like, wow, you took the words right out of my mouth and really just on my heart. So talked about alignment. It was just really exciting to see what you were doing and really putting action to it. So I'm so excited to have you here. So you're in Nashville, right?
Correct. Yep. I'm in Nashville, and I could say the same about you, Joe. When you speak, the words you speak resonate directly to my soul, and I feel the same way, brother.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate how God does all that orchestration, and all we have to do is just show up, right?
Right.
It's just a beautiful thing of synchronicities and all of the things that attract us to each other. So for the greater good. And so I really appreciate you being here. So we're going to have an opportunity to chat after you share on stage, your heart and impart what you want to do in the world and your contribution and your passion. So I'm going to turn the stage over to you, and then I'll see you on the back end.
Sounds great.
Okay. So with everyone, here's Abram. All right.
Hello, everybody. My name's Abram, and before I tell you all about myself, I'd like to share with you a parable. Once upon a time, on a city on a hill, there were communities living side by side, living their own lives in their own ways, singing the songs they liked, eating the food they liked, drinking the wine they liked, playing the sports they liked. Then a plague arrived, and people started getting sick. They all had diverse ways of living that were sufficient until the day the plague blew into town. Each community, the good people got sick, the bad people got sick, the young people got sick, especially the old people got sick. They knew they didn't have sufficient resources in of themselves to survive the plague. Then all of a sudden, they were isolated in their own homes, their own streets, and for the well-being of the city on the hill, something had to be transformed for each of them to survive. The communities were afraid to consider altering their separate paths. Then one day, there were conversations that began to spread across the city about a vision in which each separate community would come together, bringing their own diverse perspectives, unique strengths and contributions to collaborate in creating a world in which every community could overcome the plague and thrive together. The communities began to consider, and one said out loud, "Let us begin by creating a meeting place for us to talk to each other, a place for us to listen to one another and celebrate and recognize our distinctions and unique contributions, a neutral zone, a grand table to invite members from all the communities to come to the table and allow each to share the gifts and resources of each community." So they agreed to open up a table where each community could meet. And at that table, even as the adults attempted to assess their differences, the children knew none of that. As the adults spoke at the table above, their children played together. And for them, the differences were of no importance. As they observed their children playing and laughing together, the communities chose to set aside their differences in pursuit of healing their sick city. They joined together, each bringing their collective wisdom, experiences, sciences, spiritual practices, arts, and cultural traditions, all for the collective good. As they began to mourn over their lost loved ones together, they also learned to laugh again together. They comforted each other while they cried together. As the plague began to pass, the communities were also beginning to enjoy each other's gifts and contributions. They began to sing each other's songs, enjoy each other's food, celebrate over each other's wine, play each other's sports. As communities grew together, a harmonious synergy arose. New songs were sung, delicious new recipes were shared, exciting scientific discoveries were made, people danced and created new forms of expression. Unique collaborations were born. And out of these new found collaborations, new ways of being emerged. They began creating relationships and communicating across boundaries that began to fade. The more they played, the more it faded. The more they shared and enjoyed the gifts and contributions of each community, the more they celebrated each other. What was once strange grew to become familiar, and what became familiar became embraced and welcomed. The divisions among the communities faded, and a light in the city on a hill began to shine. The power of unity grew, and together they all thrived, and the world was transformed. Hello, everyone. My name is Abram, and as Joe said, I am the leader and founder of the One Day movement. And I'll tell you all about my vision, but just to give you a little context, a lot has been opening up in the world lately. And, in this new experience of the world, we're really witnessing humanity coming back to our hearts. Right now, there is an abundance of opportunity and openings for connection, for community, and for collaboration. And how I came to find myself in this place and even on this beautiful virtual stage with Joe was I did some soul searching. About 2 years ago, I put my music career on a shelf. Wasn't because I didn't love music, wasn't because I didn't love touring or performing. It was because there was something deeper that I couldn't put my finger on that was missing. It became what I called an existential inquiry. As Joe was saying, who am I? Why am I? Why bother? And I really would explore that question, very, very internally. And I began to really look back at my life. And, my experience growing up, I didn't really feel like I fit in. I didn't really feel like I belonged. I didn't know who I was supposed to be. On one hand, I was this Jew, Black, Italian kid. My father's Jewish. My mom's half Black, half Italian. I was overweight. I was picked on and bullied for being fat. And I had a victim mentality about it. And I didn't know. I was a kid. I didn't know that was my experience, but I didn't know where I was supposed to be. I didn't know where to belong. I felt just kind of in this space where I couldn't even show up in my own skin. And although my experience I felt so different, I still discovered at a young age the intrinsic truth that we are all the same. We are all human. We all are made from the same cloth. We are all children of God. We all come from the source and we go back to it. And when I went out, even with that recognition, I went out into the world and I would observe conversations that we humans and humanity as a whole, we have with each other and even within ourselves. We'll say things to the effect of Jews and Palestinians can never get along, or Pakistanis and Indians will never get along, or another one, Democrats and Republicans will never be friends. They'll never get along. And there's a million versions of these same stories that we repeat. We say them and repeat them, and we believe them. We believe them because we say them, and we say them because we believe them, and they become these self-fulfilling prophecies, which we avoid responsibility for the peace in our own hearts and our own communities. And the way I see it is more down that path is more misunderstanding, is more violence, is more war on a very personal, local level. And what I'm creating with my vision, with One Day, Because we are the possibility of intentionally making peace louder than fear and hate. We are the possibility of one community and one neighborhood. One Day is a lot of things. It's a nonprofit, it's a foundation. It is a new global holiday that we are focusing on our shared human connection. We do community building and engagement through music, art, culture, and events. But our global holiday, appropriately named One Day, is about celebrating our shared human connection, focusing and recognizing and experiencing in our neighbor human and possibility rather than a label. And this holiday is going to be a worldwide venture. And I will get into that. But part of what it is it will be kicked off by a global One Day Heal the World festival and tour. And at these events, much like the Olympics, cities will bid across the world to have these events in their city. And at these one-day events, humans will be celebrating humans. Children and adults of every creed and every color will be playing, laughing, singing, dancing, creating together in a worldwide global sandbox. An abundance of beautiful music and art, food, dance, new discoveries, new collaborations, weaving a community tapestry of culture will leave all who participate with the experience of wonder, beauty, and something within themselves that is also much larger than themselves. And everyone is invited. You know, along my path, just recognizing this vision that came out of a long spiritual journey that it was the kind of idea that had me. It's not one that I can't really take credit for it. It's something that's been inside me, and as soon as I recognized myself for who I truly was, and not who I thought I was, not who I was afraid I would be, but who I am, who I truly am, I recognize this has been something that I've wanted my whole life, but I've been running away from, that I've been hiding. That same young kid that didn't feel like he fit in was afraid to show up and share himself because I was afraid of what people would think of me. I was afraid I didn't belong. My story was, I'm not enough, and the world is dismissive. But I've discovered in my journey that it is by means of music, art, creative expression that we witness and experience our collective humanity. One song can change the world. It always have. It is our unique gifts and contributions and the seeds of possibility we each plant and give water to and provide sun for that blossoms the experience of beauty, joy, and wonder within ourselves, but also in our brothers and sisters. And as we serve one another on this community journey, one day becomes today and a new world arises. I want to share with you a poem that I wrote not long before the One Day visions came to me. Today is the day. Instead of playing it safe, I can choose to enter into that space, to be willing to face the chaos in front of my face. God is giving me grace. All the pain and disgrace goes away, and I can't help but embrace the possibility and fill in that page to create a reality I never knew could take place. You know, while there are conversations, you know, in this vast, big world, there are many conversations you can easily find on social media of that the world is divided, that we're separate. And if we listen to those conversations and if we focus on those conversations, we'll see that. We'll recognize the world being divided and separate. But that's not truly reality. It is in our network of conversations that we create the reality that we experience. It is in language that our reality is experienced. You know, when I first started this vision, you know, it was before COVID. And, you know, one of the things that's opened up since COVID is the amount of people who want to be a part of the solution, the people who want to experience love in their communities, in their world, are just coming out, showing themselves. While there is chaos and suffering in the world, there's also an opportunity. There's a collateral beauty for the people that want to lift each other up. I don't remember the exact quote, but Mr. Rogers said his mom always told him, when in times of tragedy, look to the helpers. And when we focus on the helpers, when we focus on the beauty that's happening amidst pandemic, amidst civil unrest, there's so much beauty. There's so many people, despite all the chaos and suffering in the world, there's people that are lifting others up. There are people that are sharing themselves, people that are bringing their gifts. Everyone has a unique gift, a unique contribution, a unique genius. And we all have something to share. And one of the things that COVID has opened up that I've recognized is whether we've distinguished it or not. We see maybe when I'm sick or when my neighbor's sick, I'm sick. Or when I'm sick, my neighbor's sick and their family can be sick. This is a possibility. But the opposite is also true. When I'm healthy, when I'm safe, when my neighbor's healthy and their family's healthy and safe, so am I. And it's that recognition of how interconnected we are, how every smile or frown, every word we make kept or broken, every fist or handshake we extend ripples across the universe, changing the course of reality. That's how much power you have right now. And right now. And right now. You always have that power. And my issue when I was growing up is I didn't recognize that power. I didn't recognize myself for who I truly was. I was caught up in my thoughts, caught up in my emotions, caught up in who I thought I was and who I thought I was supposed to be and what I was afraid of and how others would think of me. And this kid who had this conversation that I'm not enough and the world is dismissive is not only, he's still there, but he's not only the quieter voice. I welcome that kid and that old conversation to the table, but what one day is the opposite of that. Everybody belongs and everybody has a gift. Everyone has a unique contribution that enriches us all. And I'll share with you our vision, our mission of one day. This is where Joe and I immediately resonated with Joe when he first spoke. But our mission at one day is bringing you and me and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. And our vision is that humanity rises, connected in a world where each person's unique contributions are valued and magnified through collaboration, producing breakthroughs and new realms of possibility. And that's ultimately what this vision is. It's not about me. It's about when each of us, including me, including you, including Joe, including everybody, recognizes themselves for who they truly are. When we recognize just what's in us, who we are as a possibility. When we recognize the divine expression of the universe within ourselves, we can actually show up. And when we show up to ourselves, we can share our gifts and we can show up to collaborate. We can show up to contribute. We can give our gift to others, but we can receive the gifts of others. And that's where I want to live. I want to live in what's possible. I'm not about just surviving. I'm not about just getting by and just going one more day. I'm not about just being okay with suffering and just ignoring the pain in my heart or in others. I want to live in what's possible. When we show up to ourselves and to each other, what diseases could we cure together? What spiritual collaborations could we create together? What scientific discoveries could we embark on together? What music and artistic masterpieces could we create? That's where I want to live. That's what the conversations that I want to be a part of. And we have that power right now. In this new era, this COVID is an opportunity for us to show up to ourselves and to each other. This is an opportunity for us to shine our light. And one day is a lighthouse, is an embassy for humanity, for us to love one another. As Joe has said so succinctly, it's all about love. Love is our common denominator. And when we focus on what we have and what we share, there's only abundance. There's only abundance. And I am just so thrilled to just be on this with you, on this experience, and to have crossed paths with Joe and so many other amazing, beautiful souls who are already living in one day. And that's why our tagline is one day is today. One day is not a someday maybe, but not now. It is a right now. It is not a way of doing. It is a way of being. When we are experiencing and being one day, it is a field of our collective dreams that we each water each other and give sun to. And it's in that field of our collective dreams that we can show up for each other and create beauty in every space we exist, for ourselves, but also for our families, for our communities, for the people we don't even know. Because ultimately, deep down, that's what we all want. We all want no suffering for everyone, for our communities, for our families, for our loved ones, even for the people we don't know. We all know when our neighbors aren't suffering, we don't have to suffer. And just thank you, Joe, for this opportunity for me to share my vision. And I hope that you, if you find anything, that you'll be in touch. I would love to invite you to share your passion, because who you are is a gift, and I want to share the gift that you are. And that's why I created One Day was for you. So thank you, Joe, for letting me share.
Wow. Oh, man. Just a man after my own heart, really. Just your parable, your poem, and your vision, man, is just and the idea around like cities bidding like for the location of having the global holiday. Wow. That is just huge. I want to share some comments that came in while you were speaking. And they made me chuckle because it's like, this is really close. So Elo, he said, "I love you so much for your awareness. I've been sharing similar understandings, astound self-fulfilled prophecies for years. Thank you." And then he went on to say, "I'm tripping out. You're like my soul." So it's neat when people can connect, and we're not alone. We're just so interconnected. Gwen, thank you for being here. She says your mission gives her goosebumps. Oh. So
thank you, Gwen.
It's obvious, right, that it's it definitely is not just aspirational, it's a must. And so I have a couple questions for you to dig in a little deeper. Well, if we rewind a little bit, you talked about how you had this awakening, and you started to ask questions, this existential inquiry, right? What specifically prompted you in your life that you said, I need to take some inventory here, right? Could you share what was happening?
Yeah. So there was, I would say, to zoom out, I never grew up with any spiritual practice growing up. My father's Jewish, but I wasn't bar mitzvahed. I never had any. I was always an outsider looking in to spirituality, and I was always curious, but I never really, I was always searching for truth in some regard. Well, I have to say my spiritual journey started when I read a Bob Dylan poem called Last Thoughts on Woody Guthrie. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was the question, the not knowing, the Socratic, all I know is that I don't know. And it was almost a trial by fire as I lived my life. And, in college, I discovered, music like fully. I stepped into my own passion for music and built a career. And for the longest time, for 13 years, that was all I did. And I would, my band, we circled around the US. We had amazing times, met amazing people, amazing food, just adventure. And, it was growth, and it was the school of hard knocks. Like it was a lot of growing and falling and getting back up and falling and getting back up. And at a certain point, it was all I knew. I was an adult after doing it for so long, but that was all I knew since college. It was like, was just touring and playing and recording.
Yeah.
And as much as I loved it, there was something that it was like deeper that I didn't know what wasn't there. I knew something wasn't there, but I didn't know what it was.
Right.
And a part of that, there was a natural point in the last, at the end of 2018 where it wasn't out of animosity or out of anger or disappointment. It was just like, just because I've been doing this for so long, and because I'm good at it, isn't enough of a reason. It's not. There's a deeper purpose that feels it's missing. So it was kind of pointing back to the same conversation that I was kind of avoiding within me spiritually, of that deeper purpose. And it was like something that I would lie to myself and tell myself I figured it all out, but I was really just running from the question that I was always asking, starting when I read that Bob Dylan poem. And what really opened up is it accelerated, when I really put my band on the shelf. I had this big, vast blank canvas, this opening. Like, what am I going to do with my time? Like, all of a sudden I have this touring, literally year round to just completely blank. It was just this space and it was just like, wow. It was like, I actually have an opportunity to discover myself, but like my passions, like what fills up my cup aside from just playing for the sake of playing.
Right.
And that really, when I was early on in that open space, I was like, I literally had a scratch pad and I like wrote down on the top of it, this is like October 27th, 2018 was my last show. And the day I got back, I slept in probably for like 2 or 3 days. And then I just had this blank scratch pad. I was like, okay, what am I going to do with my time right now? And I kind of wrote, I remember before I even started the scratch pad, I wrote on the top of it, what seeds of joy can I plant today for myself, for my family, for my loved ones, for the people I don't know, for the strangers, for the people I don't even like. Wow. And then below that, what can I do today to alleviate suffering from for myself, from the people I know, from my family, the people I don't know, the people I don't even like. I just like wrote that just like in the corner. And then I just started free form writing, just like it was stuff like clean room, sell or donate clothes, do all these things. And I wrote stuff like swing dancing and like question mark. I was like, I just like things like came out. I was just flushing it. And so what that period opened, and a quick aside, I did get addicted to swing dancing in that space, but that's a story for another day. But but what I recognized, I was searching for truth. And at first, and this is kind of where my own spiritual awakening kind of came in. But at first, before, I really discovered myself, I was searching, I was reading theology, I was reading philosophy, psychology, reading scripture for the first time. I was reading religious studies. I was open. I wanted to hear every perspective, even and especially the ones I disagreed with. And I didn't, or especially the ones I don't understand. Because again, back to Socrates, who am I in this infinitely expanding universe to think in my one mind that I could understand the totality of all there is in just my limited understanding? It was just like, how could any one human say that they understand in knowledge, in mind, the totality of everything? And it's just like, so that was like the thought I was feeding. And it was the openness where I was like listening, going to places, going to churches and listening, not because I wanted to prove them right or wrong, just because I wanted to hear. It's like, because I've heard my whole life as this outsider spiritually, they're right, they're wrong. This is the right way. That's the right way. And it's like, everybody says they're right. That doesn't mean they are. It's like, what is right? Like, I don't want to be right because someone feels that they're right. I wanted to experience. But what I discovered, after that whole journey, and I mean, there was kind of a low point where I was let go from my job. I was kind of just felt like myself wandering. It was all necessary in this journey, but I kind of discovered this low point. It was like, in this pursuit of truth, when I had my awakening, I experienced that truth was not in knowledge. It was not in my thoughts. It's not some book you read. It's like, oh, well, now I know the truth, and it's, check it off a list. I realized and recognized truth is an experience. Whoa. And it was the experience of this deepest peace, this deepest calm, this deepest love, that everything is in its right place. And there's nothing anybody could do, anything that could happen in the external world that could take that away from me truly. And what prompted this awakening in this journey was just the searching and falling flat on my face and repeating that cycle until I was ready to actually face that, to actually face truth as experience and not as this idea in my head that I just read a book and now I know it.
That's what a great like pathway to the birthing of this vision. I'm always interested to see where the depth of that pain comes from, because really our wounds, that's our calling, the things that happen in our life, right, that bring us to this point where those were meant, the idea that those things were meant for us. So I think, and as you go back to those days when you were bullied and you were teased and all those types of things, I know I experienced that as well. I just want this. Can we just get along? And that idea of harmony, unity, be who you are. Let me be who I am. Right. I don't have to necessarily agree, but we still can. I don't even say coexist. It's like co-thrive. How can we co-thrive versus existing? To me is just like, I got to be here, where co-thriving is I'm seeing you in your totality, who you are, and so the beautiful differences. And I was sharing this with somebody yesterday. I'm not sure. I had some really cool conversations. Is this idea, knowing you were coming on and thinking about unity. And I think you've heard me talk about, I see a circle for some reason. And in that circle are these obvious differences, just from our naked eye. And who would want the same race? Who would want the same color or the same look? And those are just external things that show that we're different. But it is in the beauty of that expression from your culture, and from people throughout the world, that I think is like, this is what Source, God, the universe, right, is calling us to do. And I just really appreciate how you have birthed that into this movement of unity. But today you talked about civil unrest, right? And, it's really tough. I look at social media knowing, what my intent is, but it's so easy to get sucked into all the things that are happening. I mean, very polarized, of course, and someone will put out a very, very powerful message, something very positive, and someone will come in and just shoot it down, right? And so from your perspective, how does one, how do we bridge, right, this idea? How do we become the bridge? How do we have people meet in the bridge? So that will be the pathway to unity, of course, right? So it's in the differences that we're finding all of the fighting, but how can the differences bring us together? What are your thoughts?
Well, first thing I'll say is the biggest lessons I've ever learned are usually either from my failures or from people that I didn't understand or agree with. So that's the first thought. And the second thought is, bringing people an experience of themselves. I mean, there's, the saying that you can lead a horse to water. It's not, you need to change, you need to transform, you're bad. Like, it's not about making somebody wrong. It's not, it's partly about meeting somebody where they're at. But what I've discovered, especially in this journey since sharing one day, it is not logic that leads to action. Logic merely reinforces action. It is emotion that leads us to action. And we could say a million things. I might give you a million examples, but it's like we are emotional creatures, and when we take action based on what we're excited about, based on what we're afraid of, based on what and it is and what I see, and this is where I feel one day is through art, and it is through expression, that the invitation, it's not something that you make somebody wrong and say, hey, you need to transform your life or else you're a bad person and the world's going to be worse. It's an invitation by living it and being it and doing it, where people see something in themselves. Just by your natural self-expression, people see something in themselves that they want it for themselves. And that's really what it is because when you embody peace and love and joy and laughter despite chaos, people, how do you do that? why, like, how do you get there? Like, what, like, and that's everyone's journey, is to get to that space where they're willing to see and face themselves. And it's not going to be because you tell them they need to do that. It's something that they need to experience. And what I've seen is why art is so, in humanity, science is unbelievably important for progress, but it is through art that we actually experience humanity. Like, it is like we learn through science, but it's actually through art that we progress, the emotions actually make us act.
The expression.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. Wow. And I wrote that down. Emotion leads us to action. And it could be anywhere in terms of the scale of the emotion. So we see people who are angered and they're just at the end of their rope. It does spark action. But at the same time, just like it's leading to this point where it forces them to really look inwardly, because it's not the outward. So there's something that I came across where I wrote, it's not the other that's the enemy, it's the inner me that I need to pay attention to. And I see it just so much and so vividly. But I'm appreciating what you're saying, is that many times we get on our pedestal to preach and say, this is what you need to learn, versus giving them, the stage, the pedestal, and say, express yourself, share your heart. I'm going to be here to listen. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to feel you. Right. I may not agree with what you just said, but I do have a question about it. And have a conversation versus a boxing match.
Right.
And I've had conversations recently where I've told, like, good friends, where you can tell there was a differences of, one particular topic. And I just said, are you going to die on this hill? And they go, I probably will. I said, then we're not communicating. It's just like, not that you have to change that, but it was, I just noticed it was everything I said, there was a counter to it. Right. And so I think it's like bridging. How do we bridge and teach, what conversation is? And what I was appreciating, I actually used in corporate, and then recently it's been brought back to my attention, the idea of the talking stick, right? Now I've incorporated that in my home, actually. Is an indigenous, tribes, they have a talking stick, and when you have the stick, right, and no one comments. I even read some tribes, they don't, no gesture, nothing. You sit still and you're with, and then there's no commentary or anything afterwards. That you feel fully expressed, that people have heard you. There's no feedback, but you have an opportunity. And what you said, and I wrote the word down, is an invitation for self-expression, right? And so, because isn't that what we want? We just want to be heard. We want to be seen, right?
Absolutely.
And understood, right? So that's very cool. There is a couple. You have a fan here, so you might know her. So,
hello, Amy.
Amy.
I love you, Amy.
Yeah, very, very cool. And then always excited. So, Abram, I sent a friend. Oh, there you go. Well, you have a new friend.
Consider it. It's official. Let's be friends.
Yeah, awesome. Very, very good. So, talk about
one of the things you just said. I just wanted to say, about the invitation, and one of the things that I mean, this is an ongoing growth for myself, and we all have to recognize, our shadow and our ego, and take responsibility for our space. And sometimes we're in the space, we're dealing with someone else's undistinguished ego or shadow, but it is in the space. It is from the listening that a conversation happens. It's like the content of a conversation comes from the listening.
Yeah.
When we listen with our filters and from our, this person's annoying, or this person's or is a bad person, or they're addicted to this, or they're good at that, or they're bad. When we listen with our filters, we don't give people the space to actually be. And it's like, and that's where it's like comes when it's like, it's power within questions. Like when we love someone, we don't say, you're bad, you're wrong, you need to change, you're horrible, you're toxic. It's like, there are times to stand up for yourself, but when you're speaking to someone, especially an undistinguished ego or undistinguished shadow, out from love, There's no filter that you're at it. You listen from a clear space, from an empty space, from a blank space. And it's when you actually listen to somebody and you fully hear them and you recreate their world, you get in their world and you recreate their world,
right?
They feel heard, they feel seen. So if what they're speaking is marinated toxicity of their own experience, and you repeat it, it's like, it sounds like they're going through a lot because of this, and like they will see and hear themselves in ways they didn't even recognize while they were actually saying it. And like that's when we actually listen, not adding our agenda, adding our this needs to be this way, it needs to be that way, but just listening, getting in their world. It's like that. It is within the questions that we ask from that space of non-judgment, of acceptance, of radical acceptance, that they can actually recognize themselves.
Yes,
because you're just powerfully with them in their world. Powerfully with them.
I remember an exercise. There was a workshop I went to, and they used this. It was called the 7 Whys. Mm-hmm. And so you would talk about something that you believe in, and then all the other person could ask is, why is that important? And then as you start to bring it down, you get to the core root of that belief. And it was from a past experience that they have formed this belief and judgment about a topic or something. And it typically goes back to childhood. It goes back to experiences that they've had. And what did you say about, what did you mention about truth is not in knowledge, it's an experience. Mm-hmm. So their truth was based upon their experience that they had. And that experience may not have been great. Mm-hmm. So they have formed this belief that could be false, like you mentioned.
Right.
So rather than just what's on the surface of what's being said, right, do we have the courage to sit in an uncomfortable space where someone asks you, well, what's so vital about that in your life? Why is that vital? Why is that important? Mm-hmm. And they share, well, when I was younger, this would happen, how did you feel then? So that's dialogue, and that helps to understand them, to see them, and to hear the voice in that, not the voice that is contrary to what you believe, but the voice from the individual who had a life and experience that I didn't live.
Right.
All I'm hearing on the surface is you don't think like I do. You do not believe like I do. Thus, we're opposites, which is farthest from the truth. Right.
Right. Yes. It's that listening. Yeah. It's in that listening, just like what you're saying earlier, what you were saying is like, is this a hill to die on? It's like, you're inviting that. So they might say yes, they might say no, they might no matter what they say, it's like you don't have to come with animosity. It's like, oh, it's interesting. Like instead of saying, oh, that's weird, why would you die on that? It's like, oh, that's fascinating. I wonder why this is so important. And it's like not even saying, it's like it makes them look at it. It's like, wait, why am I getting upset? This is just, we're just arguing about nothing or whatever. But it's the questions in it from the non-judgment that they are actually, they didn't even realize how they came across because they weren't even fully there when they said it. And it's pointing them to that. It's like, oh, I haven't thought about that. Why do I get so upset about that little thing? That's interesting. But it's like, but like you almost like, it's almost from a place of awareness, like, that's interesting that you feel that way. I wonder why that is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so referring back to that conversation I was having about dying on the hill, because I was feeling even in my body, I'm like, oh, okay. So this is now almost confrontational versus, like with palms up. Now it was like fist up, right? And so there's a difference. Palms up is this idea of I'm here to understand. I'm here to listen. I'm here to receive you, right? Mm-hmm. Versus, fists up, which is like, I'm going to fight you and I will win. Mm-hmm. So there's a difference. So what's our intention of this conversation? Is it to understand, right? And so that's just, I'm really being pulled to foster those types of platforms and opportunities to have conversations like that, and I think people need framework. I think they need some structure to that. So, we get to this point where we are listening and we are understanding and we are seeking. We may still hold true to what our beliefs are, and that's okay. So, I have some friends who have polar opposite views with some things that are going on in the world right now. But
Mhm.
as I've asked those questions, I'm like, I can absolutely see why you believe what you believe. And who the F am I to try to change that?
Mhm.
And so with the gentleman who was dying on the hill, I said, all right, so with this particular topic, let's just, with all due respect, let's just put it to the side. Here's my question. What's the answer? Because you're going to die on the hill. So what's the answer?
Mhm.
And so after like a 10 to 15-second uncomfortable pause, he said, love. And I said, all right, let's talk about that. How do we look through the lens of love in this, right?
Mhm.
How does that happen? Because your argument is amazing. And what I'm sharing, I'm really firm believe in. But the commonality we just know is that love is the answer.
Mhm.
How does that come into play, right? How does that move circumstance? How does that change the trajectory of where we're going in this society? Let's talk about that.
Mhm.
And so it was like, if I know that that's the answer, but I either haven't embodied it, like verb. I mean, love is a verb. What action that I've taken? Am I adding to this even more? So sometimes our good intentions actually fuel the fire of this discord that we're saying
Mhm.
in the name of justice sometimes.
Right.
Right.
Oh yeah. We're big on
So
justice.
yeah, and I think you and I both know that. I mean, justice is love in
Mhm.
public. It's love out loud.
Right.
And so yeah, I'm seeking more and more these opportunities for the bridge where
Mhm.
people come to the edge where they are, and we say this is a safe space, right? Be
Mhm.
careful of the bridge, right? It's
Right.
firm and it's solid. However, once this conversation gets to a point where we're not in the understanding mode, the bridge is going to collapse. We can't meet in the middle,
Mhm.
and so yeah, I was just really curious because it's a big the global holiday that you speak about. It will take this understanding of our own uniqueness and how that it does bring unity. So I want you to share a little bit more about your movement, and now with COVID, things coming, and I just saw we're coming up. We could talk forever, dude.
Yeah. Right. Seriously.
You know, give us like a quick snippet, like look backwards at like the your first milestone has happened, right? And tell us what happened at that first milestone of the 1 day movement. Like share like you're looking back at it and say, "Oh my gosh, I remember when this happened. What happened?"
So you're saying like from this like event that we've already had,
Yeah,
like looking
yeah,
back at the first milestone.
yeah. Like it already happened. So tell us what happened. Visualize like here's what happened at that event.
Well, wow. So I just see people and humans of every culture and distinction in humanity, every creed, every culture, every color, every race, every ethnicity, every distinction. And I just see people showing up, experiencing not only loving their neighbor, but being loved by their neighbor, experiencing the goodwill and just I see grandmas and uncles and aunts trading and exchanging recipes. I see, you know, people who don't speak the same language cheersing each other in just good faith and goodwill and good love. It's like that. There's three things humans aside from language that humans connect on. That's music. That's a cheers with alcohol, and that is food. And I see you can't cheer somebody that you want them to die. You can only cheer somebody that you truly love and you wish well. And it's so I see people just playing. I see children just like a rainbow of bicycle ribbons, like, and children just on a little bicycle race, just all just riding together, without any concern about their differences. And that's
Mm,
one thing is that's I mean you asked about a milestone, but that's one thing that I see is so amazing is the differences. It was always when we get older that we actually point out and focus on the differences. But for children, it's like wait, we're different. Wait, what? Really? Like it's not something. It's something we learn in our conditioned language in our conversation. So I just
Right.
see children just playing and laughing and creating, and I see humans just like creating music together, just people with different languages, just out of goodwill and love, and just sharing themselves, and just people being contributed by people who are different than them, and actually seeing like intention. I just see thousands of people intentionally crossing that bridge, supporting, reinforcing that bridge, that they are actually going out of their way to love somebody that they don't understand. It's like, I don't really know, I don't know about you, but I love you. It's the experience of just knowing that when it's like what I said earlier, like when our neighbors are healthy and safe, so are we. And it's like, it's just extending that, and it's in standing in that. And I just really see people intentionally standing in the commonality, being united in the diversity. And I just
Yeah.
see people coming together on goodwill and love and good faith, because they know ultimately loving their neighbor is loving themselves.
Yes. Absolutely. All right. That was dope. That was awesome. As you were talking, is there a bridge in Nashville? Is there like a bridge?
There are a couple. There's a couple bridges here.
The reason I asked is I really envision like two large, massive groups of people walking towards each other on this bridge, right? And as they intersect, right, there is embracing, there's a lifting of hands, there is this solidarity, right? And I can see, like panning through and just, looking at their faces, feeling the vibration of acceptance and love and unity. And this idea is that we are one, not just in thought and theory.
Exactly.
There is this deep revelation of like, man, how I love me is how I will love others. So the key, once again, is that idea of having that unity and harmony within me, right? And so, all right, I wish we had more time, man. I just enjoyed so much you being and gracing us, man, with your vision and your love. I asked guests a couple questions before they depart. The first one is this, is that if you were given a billboard in metropolitan cities where there's a lot of traffic and thousands of people will see this message a day, what would that message be on a billboard?
Oh, so like we're saying, like New York City, like New Year's Eve, like.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's a great question. Oh, wow. I mean, I'm going a million directions. I could think of a lot of things. So I would say love. I mean, I feel like an invitation. Like, whoa.
It's a big question, right?
Yeah, it's a really big question. Like, I part of me is like wants to like actually sit down and do that, like, and actually create a billboard. It's like, wow, what could I do if I had one billboard to really reach people? I would say, what's possible when we choose love now, today?
Oh, today, now, and then today. Yes, I love it. What's possible when we choose love? And that is actually really aligned with Love Wave, which is, we exist to teach, impart, and demonstrate the undeniable possibilities when we look at life through the lens of love. So I got you. I see you.
It's not a check. It's what I'm really. It's not a checklist. It's not like, okay, I love someone.
Yes.
Done. It is a way of being, not doing. And it's like when we choose it in each moment, that's when we experience it.
Yes, thank you again, Abram, for being on. For those of you who are watching and those of you who are watching on replay, to learn more about this amazing vision and more about the movement, visit One Day Movement, mvmt.org. And then for those of you who are also watching the expansion of Love Wave, you can follow on social platforms on Facebook and on Instagram, Love Wave Live. Thank you all for just your support and being here and moving us towards this idea that the wave of love starts with inside of us, which will send ripples of effect and energetic vibration that is undeniably powerful throughout this planet. Thank you all for coming again, and we'll see you next Saturday having another amazing guest. Thank you guys for sharing that. All right.
Let's go surfing. On my way.
You got it. All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Joe.
Absolutely.